Can I hand over now to Neil?
Thank you.
Okay, let's pray. Close our eyes. Let's be quiet. Though we do not see you, we know you. Though we cannot touch you, we feel you. We cannot hear your audible voice, but we hear you. And Lord, I pray now that you sharpen our thinking and warm our hearts with a vision of yourself. May we leave this place as we intend to continue our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so, superheroes of the faith. We've got to our last one tonight, and my objectives from the beginning of the camp were that we would be able to learn from the superheroes of faith what difference it makes to have real faith in God and to imitate them. Because one thing I've noticed about faith is that it always produces fruit. It always produces action. And so, even though we are saved simply by what Jesus has done on the cross, a lot of people I've been chatting to, quite a few people this week, saying, I'm not sure if I'm good enough to get baptised. And the point about it is, none of us are going to get enough to baptise. Jesus comes for sinners. Jesus is the friend of sinners. We're saved by faith. We're saved by what Jesus has done. His performance, not our performance. His work, not our work. We're saved by faith in what He's done, by trusting that, not in trusting in ourselves. But if we have real faith, it will change our lives. It will change the way we live. It will bear fruit. And we've looked at, this is the foundation, God and His Word, and the faith that we put in unseen realities. We can't see God, yet we believe that He is, because we can see the effects of what He's done, and we can hear His voice in His Word, the Bible. And promise a future reward, which makes all the things that we have to sacrifice in this life worth giving up, because like Moses, we know we've got something better. And those are some of the things we looked at, and I'll mention those again in a second. Of course, the pinnacle of all of this is Jesus, because He's not only the perfect example of faith, He's like Usain Bolt. Remember we saying? He runs the best race, but then He comes back and He helps us to run the race as well. A bit like you guys were helping Talia after you'd done your water splash. You went out and helped her as well, didn't you? So you were setting the example, but also you were giving her that initial start. So Jesus is the author and perfecter of our faith. And the verse I'm going to land on tonight, finish on, the one that I really want you to take away is maybe the key verse from this bit that we're looking at together on camp, is Hebrews 12 verse 2. But we'll come to that at the end. So that's the verse I'm heading on tonight to finish with. So, we looked at Thor, and we saw how he wanted to be righteous. Do you remember talking about righteousness? How it was basically like this idea, it wasn't just like righteous, like a monk or a nun, but it was the idea that we want a validating performance record. We want basically to be justified, that we're justifying our life and our existence. We want people to accept us. That's what righteousness is. And what we don't realise, all the celebrities that showed in the magazine, didn't they? How they all want acceptance through having a skinny tummy or something like that. What we don't realise is that the person we really want righteousness and acceptance from is God. And the only way that can happen is by putting our trust in God's promises, like Abel. And what comes out of that is righteous life, a life that pleases God. And then we looked at Captain America and Noah, about the idea of rescue. And it was only through trusting in God's rescue. Noah didn't try and rescue himself. He built the ark just like God told him to design it. And he rescued. And sacrifice as well. Because Abraham believed God so much through his promises, he knew that whatever he gave up, God would be able to restore it to him, including his son. He talks about Moses and faith's vision. And last night he talks about love and how finally Rahab was able to find a love that would cover over her sin, and she was able to find a love that would endure. And so she was able to transfer her loyalty from Jericho to the true God of Israel. And tonight we're going to look at the Hulk. Hulk smash! And Hulk has the funniest bits in the film, if you get a chance to watch the film. It comes out on DVD in about a month, I think. And we're going to look at strength. Obviously, we're going to look at strength. Martin deservedly won Best Costume, I thought. Okay, so, here we go. The Hulk and Samson, faith, strength. So hopefully we're going to have, if it works, an example of true raw power and strength like you've never seen before. Anyway, there we go. That, I must say, was a whole lot better than me. So I'm laughing away. I'm laughing. I just couldn't find a video of myself doing it. So anyway, so here we go. There's the Hulk, and there's Samson. So we're comparing the two strongmen, one with another. There's Hulk. Really hench kind of fella. Okay, we're going to watch a little bit of video to see a bit about Hulk. What he's been doing is he's defeated a load of bad guys, but because you know he can't control his temper, so he's basically attacking all the good guys now. And he's taken out pretty much all the Avengers. Some of the humans are getting involved, the normal humans, and there's only one way they can pacify them. So see, hopefully they've got the sound for this to work.
Hey, we're not finished yet. Iron Man, Hank, slow him down.
Sure, no problem.
Chang, you're it. I can't get a beat on him. Wasp, distract him.
I'm on it. I'm here now. I won't let them hurt you.
What is she doing? He'll kill her.
He won't. She's trying to calm him down so he won't burn through the sedative.
I need you to stop fighting, okay? It's time to rest. Everything's going to be all right. I promise.
Okay, excellent. As you can see from that, Hulk has this anger, right, that strengthens him, doesn't it? It turns him to Bruce Banner. And it strengthens him against these things. So he cannot easily be damaged. If you've seen any of the Hulk movies, right, they fire like all these kind of Gatling guns and machine guns, and even apparently he can even withstand nuclear blast. And if he does get wounded, his wounds heal really quickly. And at one point, he fights a creature called the Abomination, who is like an incredibly nasty kind of animal as well, like another human who's had the super serum, and he can even defeat him. The problem is the very same thing that strengthens him also weakens him, is anger. And what it means is that he has got no self-control. Have any of you guys ever had a problem with self-control? You know when you don't want to lose your temper, but you do lose your temper? Well, I noticed that actually I really must commend Ben, because a couple of times he hurt himself today. I saw him hurt himself, and you could hear him go, and he didn't swear, which was great. I was like, well done, God was holding him back. But self-control is a really hard thing, you know, when you want to swear, and you're like that. And he doesn't have the self-control, and as a result, he loses his friends. He tends to become, if you ever watched any of the Hulks, he's very lonely, he's very isolated. Remember the clip we watched yesterday? He was in his little hut with his own, remember? When the Black Widow went to steal him. And also, he loses intelligence. You know what I mean? So he's got this problem that the very thing that makes him strong strong is also the thing that weakens him. Okay, so that's the problem with Hulk, and his attitude with strength is that it doesn't really work because it can't be controlled. Okay, so we'll think now about Samson, very famous character in the Bible, and here he is. Let's quickly look at Hebrews 11, because he's not exactly the first person that you think of as a man of faith. Hebrews 11 verse 32, page 653. What more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell. Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, and Samuel the prophets. Samson was a womanizer, as Britney Spears would say, you're a womanizer. And he really liked ladies, right? So one of the weaknesses that he had was lust. Let's look back at his life, and I'm sure if you're a human being, you may have a weakness for this. Back to page 138, Judges 14. I'm not going to read it all, but to summarise it for you, so I mean finish tonight, but have a look there with me at the end of verse 3. He says, "Get her for me, for she is right in my eyes." Basically, he's the kind of guy that would go out down the town centre and just check out girls, or go down the pub and just check out women and just try and get them to go out with them. I don't know if anyone's seen a film called Crazy Stupid Love with Ryan Gosling. He's just kind of this really smooth guy, and he just sits in bars and picks women every night. Samson's that kind of guy. And if he liked the look of a girl, he wouldn't ask any questions at all about her personality, about her character, whether she loved God. He was supposed to be like the leader of Israel, they were supposed to follow him, and he was just interested in women and getting in their bed. That's the problem with him. So he had this weakness of lust, right? But at the same time, weirdly, even though he had this problem, and some of you guys are saying, well, what if I'm still a sinner, does that mean that God can't really use me, or I'm not really a Christian? But so even though he had this really big problem of lust, he also had strength at the same time. And if you have a look at verse 5, he's wandering down to go and see this girlfriend, and a lion attacks him. And do you know what happens? It says, verse 6, here you go. The Spirit of Yahweh rushed upon him, and although he had nothing in his hand, he tore the lion in pieces as one tears a young goat. I'm not sure I could tear a young goat, as you do, yeah. But he did not tell his father or mother. And then he went down and talked with the woman as she was right in his eyes. So it's all about lust, right in his eyes. But on the way, what did you do on the way to your girlfriend? Oh, I killed a lion with my bare hands. Oh, okay. But the key phrase there, right, do you notice it's the Spirit of the Lord. He was strengthened by the Spirit of the Lord to kill the lion. The New Testament talks about the devil being like a prowling lion. So that's interesting. And then we go back to him having an ego problem, because he gets married to this woman, and he gets tricked by some of her friends and family members. And it says, at the end of chapter 14, verse 19, in hot anger, he went back to his father's house. And Samson's wife was given to his companion who had been his best man. And then some days later, he goes back to see his wife. He says, I'm going to go into my wife in the chamber. He just wants to sleep with his wife. But her father would not allow him to go in. And her father said, I thought you hated her, so I gave her to your friend. Why don't you take her younger sister? She's more beautiful. I mean, it's just crazy. This is a really interesting and crazy book. Samson said, right, this time, it's kind of Hulk smash, I will not be innocent in regard to the Philistines when I do them harm. So he went and caught 300 foxes and took torches. So he got 300 of these little foxes and got like flaming torches, tied the foxes' tails together, and sent all these burning foxes into fields and burnt down all the crops. Because they'd hurt his feelings, because they'd hurt his ego. So he had a real problem with his ego, and he kind of went a bit mental. And then he kills a load more of them just using the bone. And you see that it says in verse 8, he struck them hip and thigh with great blow, and he went down and set the cleft to the rock of Etam. So he killed hundreds of these guys with the jawbone of an ass. Oh no, he does that later on, sorry, he does that in verse 15. He kills 1,000 people with a bit of bone. That's how strong he is. So he's able to kill the enemy. Do you notice again in verse 14 it says the Spirit of the Lord. It keeps saying this expression. The Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him. And he beats up all these guys. Kills them. One good thing that you can say about him is that he did give God the credit for his strength. Verse 18. He was very thirsty and he called upon the Lord and said, You have granted this great salvation by the hand of your servant. And shall I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised? He's really thirsty for the battle. And God split open the hollow place that's Lehi, and water came out from it. When he drank, his spirit returned. So at least he did give credit to God for his strength. But of course, you know the very famous story of Samson. When it all goes really, really wrong for him, is when he becomes complacent. That's why I want to encourage you guys, don't become complacent. I know a lot of you are worried about when you go back home. I really appreciate that, because when I was your age, when I was on camp, 15, 16, 17, 18, I used to think, yeah, I'm following Jesus, I'm not going to look back, yeah. And then I go home and I just hang out with my friends and go back exactly to what I was before camp, right? Exactly, if not worse. And what I really liked about talking to quite a lot of you individually is that you've all said, I don't want to go back to what I was. And I know that I probably will. And I want to say, you don't have to go back to what you were. Just don't be complacent. You know what I mean by complacent? Don't be too relaxed. Don't be too confident in yourself. Samson was so confident in himself. He got a new girlfriend. He had about 3 or 4 girlfriends in the story. And the last girlfriend he's got a girl called Delilah. Kind of done. I wouldn't go out with a girl called Delilah, boys. She's just always trouble. And this girl, she's very, very gorgeous, and she can seduce him and get him to do anything. But she's constantly saying to him, Samson, what's your strength? How do you have so much like raw power? And he's like, well, baby, that's what all the girls ask me, you know. And he keeps on lying to her, and then he keeps falling asleep. And one of the things she said, for example, is tie me with ropes that have never been used, and so she ties him. So he falls asleep. She sort of like strokes his head till he falls asleep. She ties him with ropes, and then she goes, Samson, Samson, the Philistines are coming, the enemies. And then he goes, whoa, Hulk smash, and kills them all. And then she's like, oh, you lied to me. And it's like, this woman keeps on tying you up. Can you not realise that she's trying to hurt you? And she keeps on going back and back and back. And we often do that with sin, don't we? Even though we know it's stupid, we keep on going back to the same sins. And eventually, he becomes so cocky and complacent that he actually tells her the secret of his strength. Do you remember what it is? It's his hair, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's his hair. Luke and Alex, it's the hair. That's why he's so good. That's why he's so tough. That's why we're thinking. And so, at that point, it's really interesting in the story, because just have a look at it, please. Chapter 16, and he finally tells her the truth in verse 17. He told her all his heart, big mistake. And then he falls asleep again. Verse 19, she made him sleep on her knees, and she called a man and had him shave off 7 locks of his head. Then she began to torment him. What a girlfriend, eh? And she's doing it for money. Really bad choice of girlfriend. Do not make sure you make wise choices of boyfriend, girlfriend. And she said, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. He woke from sleep, and he said, I will go out at other times and shake myself free. Right, this is the key phrase. He did not know that the Lord had left him. He did not know that the Lord had left him. That is really, really crucial. Guys, don't get to that point when God leaves you. And it does happen. Because you have become so complacent, you turn your back on God, you become so cocky and confident in yourself. Where it's like, okay, you don't need me, then okay, I'm going to withdraw myself from you. See how you get on without me. And as a result, they put his eyes out. They get a hot stick, metal stick, poker, they put it in the brain, they go, they put his eyes out, he's blind. I mean, that is some price to pay, isn't it? Being cocky. But then, little twist in the story, the enemies, the Philistines, they become complacent, they become cocky, and they let his hair grow back again. If I was the Philistines, I'd have a guy there with a little razor every morning. You're not getting your strength back. And they just dump him in prison and forget about him. Idiots. So they're complacent as well. And then you carry on reading the story, and Samson, and then the day comes when Samson is going to be paraded in front of all of them in their temple before their evil god. And he's like a joke. They all laugh and go, you used to beat us up with a bit of bone, and now you're just this blind old guy. And you used to have one of our women as your girlfriend, you didn't realise she was tricky. And so he says to the boy, oh, can you let me lean against the columns in the temple? For some reason they put the columns like really close together. And then he goes, holds back, and he pushes the columns. And it says, look at his prayer, page verse 28. Then Samson called to Yahweh and said, oh Lord God, please remember me, and Please strengthen me, only this once, O God, that I may be avenged on the first night of my 2 eyes. And Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars on which the house rested, leaned his weight against them, his right hand on the one, his left on the other. And Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Then he bowed with all his strength, and the house fell upon the lords and all the people who were in it. So the dead whom he killed at his death were more than those whom he killed during his life. And so, although it's pretty gory, he did do something God wanted to punish the Philistines, and so God used Samson. At the end of his life, he was a blind man who could see. He was a man who was overcome by lust and ego and complacency, but he credited God. At the end of the day, we will see Samson in heaven, I think, because he's there. He was an idiot, with women, with ego, with all these things, but at the end of the day, he got it right. The one thing that mattered was that he trusted God, and he said, "Please, God, give me strength." He realised at the end, too late really in a way, but at the end of the day, he realised his strength comes from God. And that's what we should realise, your strength comes from God. God does this to me all the time. Just when I think I'm strong in myself, he makes me weak. Frank's been testifying about this, about how hard it is to ask for help, and how God lets stupid, annoying things like you slip when you're angry. What's that about God? But you realise that God makes you weak sometimes, so that your strength can come from him, and not from you. It's like he puts a crack down the middle of you so that his light can shine through. He puts a crack down you so his light can shine through. These jars of clay that we are. We're weak, we're fragile, and don't be ashamed of it, because the weaker you are, the stronger God is. You know that verse in 2 Corinthians 12? My strength is made perfect in weakness. The weaker we are, the stronger God is in us. If we can just acknowledge that. I want to finish tonight talking about Jesus as a strong man. And I love this picture because you can see, as I was talking about this when we talked about Q&A, there's Buddha's grave, Confucius' grave, Gandhi's grave, Muhammad's grave, and look, there's Jesus' grave. Oof. And look, it says year 0 to 30, and then it's crossed out because he's alive, right? You see, Jesus has got strength that is beyond any other kind of strength. And I really want to just finish tonight looking at Mark 16, because we won't have a chance to read it in our Bible study groups because we're going tomorrow morning. So we've read up to Mark 15. And Mark 16, if you just bear with me just a little longer, my friends, we'll look at that and then we'll finish. When the Sabbath was passed, Mary Magdalene, Mary Mother James, and Salome bought spices so they may go and anoint him. Very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. And they were saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of the tomb?" Looking up, they saw that the stone had been rolled back. It was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, dressed in a white robe, and they were alarmed. And he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth who was crucified. He is risen! He's not here. See the place where they laid him. But go tell his disciples and Peter that he's going before you to Galilee. And there you will see him, just as he told you." And they went out and fled from the tomb, for trembling and astonishment had seized them. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Let's go down to verse 14. Afterward he appeared to the 11 themselves as they were reclining at table, and he rebuked them for their unbelief and hardness of heart, because they had not believed those who saw him after he was risen. And he said to them, "Go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned. And these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name they will cast out demons, they will speak in new tongues, they will pick up serpents with their hands, and if they drink any deadly poison, it will not hurt them. They will lay hands on the sick, and they will recover." So then the Lord Jesus, after he spoke to them, was taken up into heaven and sat down at the right hand of God. And they went out everywhere and preached, while the Lord worked with them and confirmed the message by accompanying signs. And if you remember that Peter, do you remember looking at Peter this morning? That he had an ego problem, that he thought he was so confident that he would follow Jesus, and he had to learn humility. That's what the Spirit strengthened him in, humility. The women at the tomb, they had a fear of death that was overcome by resurrection. The disciples, they were hard of heart in verse 14, but then they learned to believe. And they were totally defeated, but they became victorious. I just want to encourage you to think that if the two biggest problems we have in life are that we've done things wrong and that we're going to die. Everyone in this room has done something wrong, and everyone in this room is going to die. Those really are the two biggest problems, guilt and death. And Jesus Christ has dealt with those two problems. You are forgiven. Look at that verse again. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved. I want to encourage you to be baptized if you haven't been baptized, to show that you believe this. Please consider it. Not because other people are doing it, not because you feel it's a good thing to do because you're 16, 17, 18, but because you believe it, that you have been forgiven, and Jesus has washed your slate clean, and that you, God has nothing against you, and you are pure white and clean before Him. Whatever you've done, God is willing to forget about it. God is willing to give you a fresh start. And the second thing is that we can be so bold and courageous because Jesus is alive. He has got power over death. And if He's got power over death, He's got power over everything in your life as well. He's got power over a cold. He's got power over a broken arm. He's got power over a broken friendship. He's got power over bad grades. He's got power over loneliness. He's got power over sadness. He's got power over addiction. He's got power over temptation. He's got power. He's got strength. And His strength can be in you. The Bible says the same power that raised Christ from the dead is at work in us. That's the strength. That's the strength we need. But you've got to make room for that strength by becoming weak. By saying, God, I don't have that strength myself. So we're going to pray about that now. Let's just focus on that last verse quickly. Jesus, the ultimate superhero. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before Him, He endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of God. Keep your eyes on Jesus. That's the source of your strength. Let's pray. Father, we thank You for Jesus, the grave robber, the one who, unlike Samson, trusted in You, Lord. Thank You, Jesus, that You have the strength to overcome everything, and You give us that strength by Your Holy Spirit. We might think that there are addictions and sins in our lives that we will never be able to break. And You've shown us by Your resurrection that You can overcome death, and so of course You can overcome our addictions. And I pray for anyone here tonight, Lord, who is struggling with addiction, who is struggling with shame and guilt from things that have happened in the past, and even things that are going on right now, that You will show them, Lord, my sister, my brother, Your child, that Your strength is made perfect in weakness. Lord, help us to not be proud. Help us to humble ourselves, to really recognize that we cannot walk through this life without You. We can't even limp through this life without You. Jesus is a stretcher to carry us into heaven. Lord Jesus, we need You. We need Your strength. Thank You that if God is for us, who can stand against us? Amen.
We show our appreciation for Neil for all his thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. We're going to end our final meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. With a few songs, just to fix our eyes on Jesus as we think about going back to the real world. Do stand, and we'll be starting shortly. They're going to flip me.
I think Liz actually follows the flip. It's all good. They're having a schoolgirl laughing fit at the back here. Okay.
Right, American now.
Dear people, just thank you for being able to share. Just making it just be a message that we really take away, but to give it back to our lives. It's going to be really exciting, just to like everything that we've learned, and we can just like really expect it. Like God is going to move in our lives and He's going to use us.
Washed away.
lost, now I'm alive in you.
You're my God and my firm foundation. It is you whom I trust at all times. I give glory and praise, adoration to my Savior who's seated on high. By grace I'm free, you rescued me. All I am is yours. I found a love greater than life itself. I found a hope stronger and nothing compares. I once was lost, now I'm alive in you. I found a love greater than life itself. I found a hope stronger and nothing compares. I once was lost, now I'm alive in you. I'm alive in you. Thank you. I once was blind, but now I see. I see you. I see you. Love came down and rescued me. I thank you. I thank you. I once was blind, but now I see. I see you. I see you. I found a love greater than life itself. I found a hope stronger and nothing compares. I once was lost, now I'm alive in you. I found a love greater than life itself. I found a hope stronger and nothing compares. I once was lost, now I'm alive in you.
Should we pray together as we finish? Father God, we really do believe that we've found a hope that is so strong and nothing compares to it. That hope in the Lord Jesus, who died for us and is with us wherever we go. And we praise you and thank you for him. He died for us and loves us just as we are. Please would we walk with you this year. Please would we be men and women of faith. We trust in what we cannot see and look forward to future blessing and reward. Pray these things for Jesus' sake. Amen. This hot chocolate served outside by bonfire, I think.
We start watching Iron Man. Finish the film. Half an hour left of Iron Man. If you start that.
Start at 11.
Start 11. Finish half 11.
Finish half 11.
Cool. Yeah.